you're helping me. You just mentioned it again. We must have done another test together. Right around 2004, we ran the Corvette together.
Right.
So we'd become good friends at this point, and I ran the Vet with Dad in 01. We had a good experience. I've become good friends with Ron Fellows.
Great guy.
Yep, super cool. Ron helped me. Dad sent me out to buy Bondurants in Phoenix. I got a lot of help there. Andy Pilgrim was helpful. You're absolutely in the middle of my life. I'm trying to get better and better at road racing and all that stuff, and we're becoming friends. Corvette comes to me and says, you want to run this race? It's off weekend in the middle of the 2004 season. I'm like, man, I do, but I'd like to, can I pick who I race with? Who's my driver, my co-driver? And they're like, yeah, who? And I said, Boris said. You remember all this?
Yeah.
And they were like, sure. And so do you remember me calling you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was really cool because I remember for years I always tried to get them to test me.
Yes.
And they wouldn't because I think I was a little too wild for them,
Yes.
right? You know, the hair or whatever they thought I was would never fit. But you got me in that deal. And I remember the funny thing about it was, you know, the money was okay. But
Sure.
I didn't care about the money. I want to do it with you. I thought it'd be fun as hell.
Yes.
Right? But they came to me about the merchandise. It's funny. And they said, well, you know, we don't get drivers don't. I go, no, I want the same deal Junior has on the merchandise. That's why I said, I'm not doing it. I just said it as a joke, and they did. And I think I made more money on that one ride over that friggin' diecast.
That we didn't even
drive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Didn't
I've
even
signed
race.
millions of them.
So,
Yeah, it's terrible.
To be clear, you're talking about the 2004, the race that you guys were going to run at Sonoma, but you crashed.
Yeah, we're going to get
Yeah, so that's what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
okay.
the Corvette come back to me and asked me if I wanted to run this race during an off weekend, and I said, sure. It was really out of character for me because usually I was going to go somewhere with my friends and party, or
Right.
I didn't really race outside of that NASCAR bubble. And I just done the 24-hour earlier that year with Tony Stewart and Andy Wallace. Great experience. And so it was going to be awesome to be able to do it with you, and I think that would probably be the only way I would do it is if it was with you.
I mean, the whole weekend was a blast until race morning.
Right. So we're practicing. Things are going pretty good with that. We had a third car. They had two cars in the field, and we were in a third car.
Right.
I don't know. I want your version of all this. I'm going to tell you my version, and then you tell me what you think. But be completely honest. I don't really remember much about practice and all that. We were in and out of the car. It was hot, not real comfortable. We did some driver changes and felt pretty good about that. There's a short race. Wasn't going to be, you just going to drive it a little bit. I was going to drive it a little bit. I think I was going to start the race, and then you were going to finish. They did a lot of work on the car the night before the race. They pulled the fuel cell out of it. There's some kind of a issue with the fuel system, and they pulled all that out and put it all back together race morning. And so they had a warm-up at like 9 o'clock. And so we pull out on the racetrack, and I'm kind of in and around all these Porsches and all these other guys, these GT3 cars and so forth, and we're just putting around the track. And we're at not green yet. The track's we're not up to speed. We're just kind of rolling around. I just literally pulled off pit road, and I got all the way to the back side of the track and turn 5 on the cup track. And anyways, we turn that corner, and we're coming back through the S's down back toward the garage. And, I mean, I'm just quarter throttle in this car, and it spun out. And when I spun, I mashed the brake pedal, and it did not slow the car down. It's just sliding forever. And it bounced into this tire barrier. Not hard. But, it damaged the car pretty good. But the car didn't slow down when it started sliding at all. And I know those tires are pretty greasy because I'd spun out in them in 01 during the 24-hour race, and I also spun out in 2004 trying to get off pit road a couple times.
Right, at night when it's cold.
Yeah, they're terrible.
Right.
They're really hard. They steal the same way. Takes them about 2 laps to really get going. A lot of guys have trouble coming off pit road. So I thought, okay, it's just that's the way the tire is. But anyways, I crashed, and my immediate thought was, I've f***ed this up.
Right.
I have f***ed this up. Boris, I knew how excited you were about what we were doing and how, and you're not even going to, this is the race is starting in like a couple hours and we're not going to get to do it. It's over. And like right after that thought, the thing goes, poof. It was like a compression.
Right.
It goes, poof. And the whole thing is on fire. And I'm like, no fucking way is this thing on fire. I'm like in a ball of fire. Not like the back's on fire or the right front's on fire. Like the whole damn car is on fire. It blew the back glass out of it when it goes poof. And I was sitting there for what felt like a minute going, I can't believe this is happening. And then the fire came up in my helmet and was like right in between my visor and my helmet. And I was like, I better get the hell out. And so then I thought, I don't know how to get out. Like in this moment when it's like time to go right now, I'm like, I can't pull my thoughts together to remember like the process of, okay, here's how this winning net comes down. Because it's not like the winning net that I use in my race car. It's how do I do that? How do I open the door? This door opens like a car door. Where's the latch? I don't know. I can't think of all these things fast enough. And it feels like 1,000 bees are stinging me all over my body. And so luckily the crash and all the fire and everything has kind of made getting out of the car and exiting a pretty easy process. There was no winning net anymore. And when I kind of started climbing out of the car like you would a stock car, hopping up on the door, and it was melted. And so it just collapsed. When I put all my weight, got my hip up on the driver's door, it just buckled. And I fell onto the ground, and then I don't remember anything. From that moment on, I don't remember a thing. And the next thing I remember is laying on the table in the Infield Care Center. Now, I've seen pictures of me sitting on the tailgate of a truck and being around corner workers and all that stuff after getting out of the car, but I don't remember any of that. And so the next thing I remember was like I woke up or I came back to or I kicked back into conscious mode and I was on that table and my freaking legs were on fire. And I was screaming and you and Max Pappas were standing over the top of me at my head, and the lady nurse was at my legs and I was screaming at her like my legs hurt bad. They're really hurting bad. And she grabbed some morphine like you might use or see on a World War or a Vietnam doc. She shoves it into my leg.
It was a big needle. That needle was like that long. Yeah.
It was about 10 inches long?
Yeah, it was long.
So she shoves something in my leg and squeezes, and I'm grabbing the table, and I'm like, it still hurts. Like it's supposed to work immediately, right? It's not working. And y'all were shouting at her too. Y'all were like, help him, get him. I was telling you, I was like, come on, man, think of something different. Think of like girls or think of something different. You're like, no way, man, I'm burning up. That's what you told me. I can't think of that now. And so she shoves another one in there, and then I blacked out.
So my version of that story is, I remember you were strapped in. I remember they redid the whole car that night.
Yeah.
We were just a little bit off, but not too bad.
No.
I mean, because it was good. And I remember putting your window net up and saying, all right, man, you were just going to go out and do 2 laps. I was going to do 2 laps, and we're just going to wait for the race. And I kind of walked over the pit wall, and you left the pits, and all of a sudden I see everyone staring at the TV. I'm like, what's that? A car on fire. It's Junior. And I looked up the S's, and I saw the smoke, and I'm like, and I just beelined it for the Infield Care Center. I just went straight there. And then Steve Crisp and somebody from Chevy was there too. And we're in there, and when they pulled you in, they were kicking everybody out. I go, I'm not going anywhere. So it was just me standing over you, and I was freaking out.
Where was Max Pappas?
He wasn't there. He wasn't in the Infield Care Center. It was just me, because it was me and Steve Crisp, and they were like, no, everyone's got to get out of here. And I'm like, there's no way I'm leaving, right? And when you were, you got to give me something, man. My legs are burning up. And then I tried to tell you, I go, man, just calm down. Just think of something else. Put your mind, think of girls, think of something fun. No way, man, my legs are burning. And I've seen all those war movies where they stick the morphine in and right away they kind of go out like an animal on, Wild Kingdom. And that first shot did nothing. But when she pushed that second shot in, I mean, before she was done, your eyes just rolled back and boom, you were gone. You were just gone, right? So like they cut your suit off and everything, and they're loading you up, and so they put you in the helicopter. And Steve Crisp and the guy from Chevy, I forget his name, he went in a police car, and I'm like, look, and Deanne, my wife, she wasn't even at the track yet, right? And Boris was like 6 months old, I think. And so I'm like, all right, I'll collect all this stuff. And so they take off. The helicopter takes off. I call Deanne. She comes. And I had like a Geo Metro rent-a-car. I remember that. This tiny little rent-a-car with a kid's seat in the back. And you get your suit and everything, get all your clothes and collect everything up.
I have the suit still.
Right. Well,
because of that.
Right. And the funny,
Thanks to you.
The funny thing about that is, you know, I just threw it in the car and we start driving up because it's like an hour away. We're driving up. I'm like,
it smells.
It smells like a damn campfire in here. It was your suit. We had to take that, put that in the back because it smelled so bad. It was like burnt.
It
It smelled like a burnt log.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was crazy. It's crazy. And then we're up in the hospital and you had like a code name in there. We went in there, but you were out. They're going, it's going to be a few hours. And so I never experienced anything like this. It's like going to the hospital with Elvis. But the funniest thing that happened was, and this is probably 2 hours after it happened, my phone rings. This is Boris said. I'm like, yep. This is blah, blah, blah from the National Enquirer.
Oh.
And I'm like, I want to talk to you about Dale Earnhardt Jr. I'm like, who? Dale Earnhardt Jr. Like, who's that? Well, you're the race car driver, right? I'm like, yeah. Well, weren't you racing today and Dale Earnhardt Jr. caught on fire? I'm like, I don't know who that is. And they're just like, it's like, what? I go, and I hang up. Calls right back. No, this Boris said the race car driver, right? I'm like, yeah. And you're racing a Corvette today? I'm like, yeah. We want to talk to you about Dale Earnhardt Jr. He was in an accident and got burned. I go, I don't know who that is. It's just like, but when I was freaking out, it's like, how did you get my number?
Right.
Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it was just crazy, the whole thing. But man, it was scary.
I know it.
You scared us bad.
I was terrified.
Yeah.
Other than him screaming on the table and saying my legs are on fire, could you visually see injuries?
Yes.
At that point?
Yeah.
And they had they cut his
Suit
fire
was
suit
off,
off?
yeah.
Oh, so they had.
Yeah. I was going to sell the pictures in the internet.
What were you thinking? How bad did this look to you?
It didn't look life threatening. Like I was scared when I saw the fire on the TV and what the smoke looked like. I was scared to death. Like, and that's why I beelined it there. But when they cut everything off and looking, it was like, okay, he's got some burns. You know, there's one on the back of the leg that looked pretty, you know, but not life threatening. So I felt good. And then where you were at that burn center, that was scary, man. And the nurses, I remember they were wearing T-shirts with like airbrush flames on them.
What?
And there were some people in there that were pretty bad.
Yeah.
So it was I felt good after I left him when he got loaded up because I'm like, all right, he's gonna be okay. He's gonna be hurt, but he's not like
Good, yeah.
Cause that was scary.
I remember waking up in there and they told me they're like, you know, just like it's like real bad sunburn. And my legs were really, really red I didn't see the back of my legs. So when the flames coming up underneath the seat and it's kind of really laying and focusing right in the bend of my knees. Yeah. And when I got out of the car, I must have squatted down or fell over or something, and I compressed all of that burnt suit into, you know, I cooked my leg.
Right.
When I got out of the car, I cooked my leg by compressing all my suit in the hinge of my knees. Somehow or another, I got burned really, really bad on the top of my left thigh. And so they were like, oh, that's all. It was just red. And so they're like, that's just real bad sunburn. Imagine that's what I'd compare it to. And I was like, man, it's, you know, it really, really hurt. I just don't think that's what it is. And then like several hours later, it's like blistering up and big, giant freaking blisters, and which they had to handle all that. And the left thigh was ended up being basically like a 4x6 open wound that literally just had to heal closed on its own. And I guess in hindsight, they might have should have skin grafted it and put something down there. But I literally walked around with a hole in my leg for a month.
Yeah.
And I mean, that thing would grow and create new skin and grow and grow and close and close and close. But when we won Bristol, when we won both races at Bristol, the Xfinity and the Cup race.
That weekend, right?
I had a 4x5, 4x3 open wound on my left leg, and the champagne got in that at Victory Lane. You talk about hurting.
Yeah.
And that's why when you see me in pictures at that Victory Lane at Bristol, I'm sitting on that cooler because to stand up, it felt like all of my guts were trying to come out of that tiny hole.
Right.
It was the strangest sensation.
You know what's strange about that weekend? So years later, I took that suit. I'm a partner in this company called K1 Speed, and we have indoor go-kart tracks. So all my old suits, I just frame, and they go to the go-kart tracks, like a place to throw them all. And Lou Gelati, this guy calls me up, hey, you want to race the Long Beach Grand Prix in a Corvette, blah, 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 ALMS race? I'm like, yeah, sure. And so the night before practice, I go, hey, you want to take your guys to K1? We'll all go go-karting. So we're there go-karting in Torrance, and they're like, hey, what about suit tomorrow? What suit are you wearing? We got to have the right patches. And I go, there's that Corvette suit up on the wall. We'll just take that, right? Because we never even used it.
Yeah.
Took that thing down, and that's the suit, right? And in that race, 4 laps from the end, I was in a big fire.
You gotta be kidding me.
Big fire. Like if you saw the picture on my phone, I'll show you a picture on my phone, and literally, like, I'm driving down the straightaway and it just exploded from the back, and I'm in flames, completely in flames. And like when it first happened, it was 18 and a half seconds, right? Because I timed it on the TV. But when it first happened, it was just burning the back of my neck. I'm like, like panicking, just panic. And then I'm like, I got this moment of clarity, and I don't know if it's because of what happened to you or what, but I'm like, man, this is bad. Shut your mouth. Don't open your mouth no matter what. So I didn't ever take a breath. I just went. And then I was like, I got to get to the end of the straightaway, because Long Beach, the front straightaway is this long curve, and I would have just slammed on the brakes. It would have just been a pile up. And so I drove all the way to the end. Then the whole time I was just thinking, just be calm, think about what you need to do. You get your air hose off, your radio, and the buckle. And then the last thing I did was that little button underneath the steering column to get the wheel up. And when I pulled my hand back, it just opened up like a flower. Like all the seams in my glove burned at the same time. And I was like, that's really weird. But every split second, I'm like, it's hot.
Yeah.
How can it be this hot? And I dove out and done. And I'm going to show you the picture, because it was crazy. And at the end, I'm like, man, that suit must have been that's 18 and a half. That's right near the end. You can see
wild.
I'm just surrounded in fire. And I've seen that picture of you from the
same
in-car.
picture.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if those suits were bad or not. So now I have that suit frame that
Mojo.
smelled just like your suit.
Yeah.
That campfire charcoal smell.
They said the sensor burnt out on that Corvette at 700 degrees.
Right.
They have a cockpit temperature sensor in there, and I would tell the one thing that I took away from that. I mean, I took away a lot of shit, but the one thing that I remember thinking was, none of us really appreciate just how freaking hot fire is.
Hot.
It is hotter. It is hotter than your there is nothing in your life that that you could compare it to.
It's not a good way to go.
It isn't.
And so it's funny that, I remember when I got out, I unzipped my suit and took my suit down, and the smoke was coming off my skin. And I'm like, that's not right. Like, it's steaming like my skin. I'm like, that's not right. And they took me to an Infield Care Center they had set up there, and they're putting cream on. They're doing all this stuff. They cut everything off. And then they start saying, we're going to transport you to the Long Beach Hospital. I'm like, no, I'm going home. I mean, my car was parked on the beach. I go, I'm leaving. So it was like 20 minutes of arguing and like signing stuff. Like, I'm just getting out of here. And it's a good thing I didn't waste time, because I get in my car and I'm driving home. And as I was getting close to home, my head started to swell up. My eyes were swelling shut. And like the next day, I mean, I barely made it home where I could still see. And the next day, my head was big like a pumpkin. Both eyes shut, couldn't see anything. And just like all the water went up and just swelled my head up. It was crazy.
That is wild.
Crazy. Yeah. Fire was not good.
Did you enjoy that conversation with Boris said? Well, you should listen to the entire podcast. The Dale Jr. download is available on all major podcast platforms.